in New Zealand, what we did find is that some of the dogs, we got some quite sick dogs in the New Zealand enrolments, and one dog was put down 9 days after enrolment. So what I've done there is working with the board and also with the consultant who's helping us run that study, is just reconnect with the practice and to go back through their enrolment criteria and just ask them to, think a bit differently perhaps around the dogs that they enrol. So we've got to be a little bit careful here in that we, if we said, okay, we will only take, let's say stage grade 2, 3 and 4, right? We won't take grade 5. Then we slow our enrolments up even more. And my concern being an old regulator in the animal health industry is that if you present data to the regulator that's segmented in that type of sense, it may not be an issue, but you will potentially get into discussions where your label will say, for the treatment of grade 2, 3 and 4 only, not for grade 5, right? So this is just my personal view. Roger may want to comment, but I would support not changing the staging that we enrol. I think it's better to enrol everything, but your question's a really good one, but I hope I've provided some context that what oncologists tell me all the time is that this decision of which to enrol is actually one of the more difficult parts of their role in the study. So that's, and New Zealand Re, because they had 5 dogs, picking the memory that probably 5 of those 9 would have come from the New Zealand site. So hopefully that helps, but a bit more context.
Okay. Yeah, can I just follow on from that? Could you talk, and this might be a question for Roger as well, can you talk a little bit about the relationship between a successful phase 2 trial outcome and a commercial outcome? You've already, it's obvious that the original trial design has been extended informally, if you like, by having a combination therapy, which is, if I'm understanding you correctly, sounding like a big commercial opportunity for monopantal, but not actually part of the formal phase 2 trial. So are you or Roger able to talk a bit about what the conclusion of the successful or unsuccessful, statistically, conclusion of the phase 2 trial might mean for commercial negotiations? To what extent are potential commercial partners looking to a successful phase 2 trial result to determine whether or not they're interested in coming on board?
Yeah, so Roger, do you mind, I can have a crack first if you want to, or would you like to kick off?
No, you have a go.
Yeah, look, I think that the question really is aligned to the retrospective group of monipantal and prednisone. And as I said, like the initial study design was like monipantal only. And I think over the duration, while PharmAust has not changed the design to prospectively examine monipantal and prednisone, this retrospective examination has actually, I think, identified, this my view, a much more appealing commercial opportunity for the company as opposed to monipantal on its own. So I think the retrospective analysis is interesting. Obviously, it needs to be prospectively explored in a phase 3. That would be something I'd be very keen to support. So I think coming back to your question, then if we don't get 18 out of 46, then at the moment, I'm actually quite relaxed from a commercial sense about that. If we can still build more retrospective data with the combination therapy over the next run of dogs. So, Roger, please, do you want to contribute to that answer as well?
I think you answered it pretty well. I mean, I would add, though, that if the whole point of having the Bayesian analysis is so that you can stand up and say there's no or little chance that we're making this up as we go along. It's statistics. You've got a 95%, 98% chance of it being right. You're reasonably happy, and there, to some degree, you have to separate off the clinical outcome, shall we say, that yes, it's statistically significant, versus marketing outcomes. How do you sell this now that you know that it works? It's like all cancer drugs in man and animals. It's not going to benefit everybody every time. Some people will respond remarkably well, and some people will do poorly. And we don't exactly know which ones are which. And as Kim mentioned, a lot of these dogs haven't just got tumours at accessible sites which you can look at. You can have some in the liver, you can have some in the brain, and depending on where the metastases are, will affect survival quite dramatically. And you're not going to really change things by giving them monopandel or even chemotherapy if they're riddled with tumours. So again, we as a business need to show and put our hand on our heart that yes, monopandel plus prednisolone gives you a significant benefit, and it's statistically significant. And then we need one of the bigger companies to take it off our hands based on that, and to do it, and perhaps in parallel, looking at how to commercialize and how to do a phase 3 trial at the same time, and of course pay for the phase 3. We had a question, are we going to raise money? Of course we're going to raise money, but that money may come from shareholders, but it may also come from doing a license deal as we move forward, because we've convinced the partner that there is a commercial opportunity.
I think also to Paul's question about the clinical outcome versus the commercial outcome. So the clinical outcome is the PD versus SDs. However, Kim talked to it at length in the slides. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's a stable disease or progressive disease. The dogs are living extended lives, and Kim, you might want to just refresh everyone's memory on that very important point.
Yeah, and I think.
I'm sorry. That's to what the commercial outcome is. So not distinct from the clinical outcome.
Yes. So certainly the clinical statistical outcome is key to driving decisions. So all the shareholders will be aware that the first part of the Bayesian design was met. So PharmAust decided to progress to phase 2. So we have met the first part of the Bayesian design, and we're pushing forward to look forward to the second. But I think, as Sam alluded to, what PharmAust would be really, I think what would be great to start thinking about is that clinical and statistics, when you're dealing with oncology and also some other diseases, sometimes don't go hand in hand. And from a marketing perspective, then the quality of life, the duration of survival, safety, lack of adverse events, these have all come through strongly, both from owners but also from the companies that we've spoken to, in terms of how they see other products in the market. So I think the SDPD thing, while we will continue obviously to focus on the Bayesian design, as we think more about the commercial opportunity, it's something that I think that could be worth talking to more of the partners, potential partners that we are looking at, and they may be looking more for a commercial outcome that's built around a strong phase 3 with sufficient numbers to build the statistical outcome that Roger's been talking about. please just bear in mind that the retrospective analysis is only that. So it's interesting, but it needs to be tested prospectively.
Right. Thanks, Kim. Are you happy with that, Paul? We have gone well over time. We've got time for one more question. Alan.
Just to follow on to that, is there an opportunity then for a potential partner to move towards a deal prior to the closeout of phase 2B?
Sorry, is that for me? I couldn't quite hear that last part of the question.
No, it broke up. I didn't
How
catch
much
the
now we
end.
can do a deal before we finish phase 2?
The question is, will we
Well, we're trying.
So
We're in dialogue.
yes, we have an open mind.
I think there is a chance, but it's a more complex situation. With all these things, you've got to look at of course the results that you've got, but also supply of drug. Is the supplier, is the manufacturer by PharmAust better than the manufacturer by Align? So all these things need to be filtered through, and this is why it takes months to secure an interest. And I can't say much more than that without making us all insiders.
Yeah.
can I just add one more in, because we haven't touched on it, which is the COVID side of things that I know it's a burning issue for a few people. Why are we doing a mouse trial months and months and months after we decided to go to do COVID trials? And where is that at?
Roger, an update on the COVID trial?
Well, the COVID trial, we have several opportunities to look at MPL. We've chosen to do the MND trial because that's fully funded by 5MND. We have opened up a dialogue with Ergomed to do a COVID trial, and that would probably be run out of the Eastern Bloc in Europe, because they don't much subscribe to the vaccines and so on. A lot of them are just untreated. So we would be looking at unvaccinated populations, and there's not many of those at the moment, which is why we go to the Eastern Bloc. So yes, things are lined up. We just need to strike a few goals so that we can raise the money to do the COVID. At the moment, I don't think it's possible on our current funding levels.
Just a question.
Just ask about the delay. Why did it take so long to make a decision to go to
I think I can't. You broke up again. I didn't quite
Why
catch
did it
that.
take so long to come up with a decision for mouse trial?
Alan's asked, why did it take so long to come up with a decision to go into mouse trials?
We did the mouse trials to identify whether there was antiviral activity, and there was. And we've been sitting on that data now until we can move into the COVID. But certainly there's interest to do the COVID trial.
Yeah, we're waiting on data from the MND trial.
I described it as competing priorities.
Yes, that's right.
That's fine.
And we changed
I
our
suspect.
strategy to wait for the info we get back from the MND trial.
Yeah.
And as to whether that may give us certain pointers and that we can move to the next level rather than do a smaller trial, as you say. I mean, as to Paul's question, which obviously the successful end of the phase 2 canine trial would constitute a make your mind up moment for the partners. But we would, who we're talking to, but we would obviously with an open mind consider a commercial outcome and arrangement depending on its terms at any time.
Yeah.
So, Roger, did you say that you've actually done a humanised mouse COVID trial? Is that what you just said?
Roger can't hear you.
I didn't hear that. So
So, Roger, did you just say a minute ago that PharmAust has already done a humanised mouse COVID trial? Is that what you said?
I think he was referring to the Wavy stuff and the 360 biolabs.
But we haven't done a mouse trial though, has there?
We
No?
haven't announced anything, so
No.
we will announce it.
Yeah, okay. So, on the back of the WEHI and the 360 laboratory results on COVID, why did PharmAust choose not to follow on and do a mouse trial on the back of WeHi and 360, and why did the board of PharmAust choose to go to Logan University with the results they have rather than then go back to COVID trial phase 1, 2, and down the track 2 years we still don't have a product in market. COVID's still rampant throughout the world, and there's a real possibility that we could have a product on the market now and be making money. Is there a reason why they didn't follow that line?
When you're running multiple projects and you're a small group, as they move forward, you have to evaluate the viability of each one, and sometimes move to accelerate other ones, particularly where you have a partner or funder like MND. So, due to competing demands on time, we're focusing on the finalisation of the canine trial, the MND, but also keeping our contacts with these others available. Unfortunately, we're not Glaxo and we can't do everything all at the same time, but we are considering the opportunities, and we think that a more intelligent decision has been made, namely that we'll wait to get PK data from the MND trial in order to determine whether that will give us any pointers going forward. If we had particularly large pockets, we would obviously have also been able to accelerate that.
I think we'll wrap it up. We've got a designated IR investor relations here, which I'll introduce you again, Anusha, and she's available for you to email at any time, or very accessible, which we're delighted with, as a lot of our shareholders. So I think we'll wrap that up. Thank you for coming, and we look forward to
Thank RSM for hosting us in this lovely office, and thank all the shareholders for attending, and the video will be available either through us or through Mick going forward. Thanks everyone.